Hello everyone, my name is Nadia Lee Owens, and if you're new, welcome to Bi Black and Bookish, a booktube channel where a bi black girl who reads too much is currently operating on 2 hours of sleep and caffeinated chocolate bites. Today I will be reviewing the third and final book to the Shadow and Bone trilogy, Ruin and Rising. If you haven't seen the previous two book reviews, please go ahead and check out those in the description below. In the first video, I think I mentioned how it's very clear that Shadow and Bone is the author's first novel, and it turns out my assumption was correct. But in the 2 to 3 years it took to complete the trilogy, I do think that her writing had gotten significantly better. So good job, Miss Bartigo. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. With that being said, let's get into it. This time I made about 8 predictions and only end up getting like 2 or 3, almost 3 of them correct. But I feel like the predictions I got right were the big ones, So I predicted that either the Apparite and or the Darkling would have some sort of connection to Saint Ilya Morozova, most likely a familial connection. When the Darkling's name is revealed, because of course it would reveal his connection to Morozova, and his real name would hold some sort of power to defeat him, like Rumpelstiltskin. I don't know. I thought it would be funny. I thought it would be a funny concept. Lena will also restore her powers somewhere near the beginning of the book, because she'll of course need those in order to fight the Darkling, but she'll end up giving up her powers in order to be with Maul, maybe passing it on to another Gresha like Zoya. This sacrifice of her power will happen when she finds the third amplifier, but decides to spare it, and she'll free herself from the previous amplifiers. I thought the Darkling would have like a change of heart towards the end when his monsters like turn against him, and he manages to kill them all before he dies. He is going to die. I am 100% sure of that. The Apparite would turn out to be a bigger villain than initially perceived. I was really out here overestimating this man's importance. Obviously that prediction did not come true. And finally, at some point in the book, Alina would have a dark ray-like vision or something like that. You know the scene that I'm talking about. Based on the prologue, it seems a month or 2 has passed since the end of the last book. Not long, but long enough for Alina to recover at least some of her powers. They are all still underground in a large cave system thing they call the White Cathedral. And because of her weak state, the Apparite is taking advantage of Alina and controlling her to be the saint he's telling her everyone is, and control the masses. And he isolates her from Maul and the rest of the Grisha. She is occasionally allowed to visit Jinya in the kitchens, and in order to be granted this quote-unquote privilege, Alina does put on this sort of act in order to appease the Apparite. I noticed this is kind of a pattern with Alina. In order to manipulate the men that try to manipulate her, the Darkling, the Apparite, and yes, to some extent I am including Nikolai and Maul, Alina has to play into some typically non-threatening female trope. For the Darkling, it's this silly love-struck girl, and for the Apparite, it's this simple country girl, so humble, blah, 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 blah. And for Maul, it's the cute childhood friend that still needs his protection because he's a big, strong man. Later on in the book, this becomes bluntly obvious with Maul. I thought of the militia man's body falling in pieces. Maybe you were right to be scared of me. I wasn't scared of you, Lena. I was afraid of losing you. The girl you were becoming didn't need me anymore. But she's who you are always meant to be. I felt that was a little gaslighty, kind of like in the way it's like, oh, I understand that you need to be this sort of girl, but I miss the girl you used to be, Alina. I'm like, shut the fuck up. However, with Nikolai, it's kind of the opposite problem. With Maul, Lena has to make herself bigger than it seems she's comfortable being, so he can use her in his like schemes. Not really schemes, more like his plans to take back Ravka. But still, it isn't solely because of Nikolai that she has to be like a stern military leader type. It's more to do with the fact that they are at war, and Lena really is the only one who can step up to the Darkling. So proof number one that Nikolai is superior to Maul. While Alina is in the kitchens visiting Jinya, the Apprite, his guards, and the Gresha twins barge in with Maul, Nadia, David, and Zoya, claiming they are planning on kidnapping Alina. A fight breaks out, but Alina and the Grisha gain the upper hand because it turns out it was all a ploy to usurp the era. But put together by Maul and a few of the Grisha, including the twins. They then make plans to leave the White Cathedral to find Nikolai, who is rumored to be the Prince of the Sky going against the Darkling. When she's alone, Alina is able to visit the Darkling in the same way that he visited her in the previous book. He looks completely recovered, unlike Alina. And I think I forgot to mention this, but Alina now has like hair, consequence of when she nearly killed them both at the end of Siege and Storm. It just really solidifies her status as the main character in an anime. Actually, if this was an anime, this will be just a sign that she's going to die at the end. But this is a Western YA. I don't think I've ever read a YA where the main character dies. If you do know of a YA where this happens, you have to send it to me so I can check it out. Anyway, the Darkling once again offers Alina to rule beside him, and she of course refuses. After hosting a sermon with the Apprite, Alina, Maul, and the Grisha all leave the White Cathedral, minus like two of the Grisha, but those are like non-consequential characters, you know what I mean? They leave the White Cathedral through the intricate tunnels leading to wildly different caves. Like there was one that had a pool filled with luminescent fishies, so the pool looked like the night sky. That sounded pretty cool. There was even an iron gate that was flanked by like angel statues. The hint of lore that ultimately leads to nothing is something that I'm used to seeing in open world video games like Fallout or something similar. I do think that doing something like this does work a little better in video games rather than a novel, because in a novel the reader is kind of limited with what they know, and it's strictly via words the author has put in the book, while in video games the player has a bit more freedom. There's a bit more like interactive and creative ways in order to find little hints of lore throughout the world that the game developer can literally put anywhere. They can put it in the item descriptions. I know that's how Dark Souls works in a way, and they can put it in environmental storytelling. They can do it in, they have a lot more tools than an author does with this kind of stuff. Once the group has made it to the surface, they start looking for Nikolai, but instead get caught by smugglers like instantly. These fuckers are so good at getting caught. But right before getting caught, Alina learns that Maul has a tattoo on his back that says, "I became a blade." And I had to laugh because at this point I started tolerating Maul a bit more, but that does not change the fact that he's kind of corny as fuck. A tattoo stretched across his broad back, something like a compass rose, but much more like a sun, the points reaching from shoulder to shoulder and down his spine. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you do this?" He shrugged and his muscles flexed beneath his intricate design. Mom, why would you mark yourself this way? I have a lot of scars, he said finally. This is one I chose. Ooh, I'm sorry, that's lame as fuck. They do get rescued by Nikolai on his flying ship. After leaving the capital, Nikolai set up a base in the mountains in Fjerda, one of the hostile neighboring countries. Though apparently he's had this secret base for years. Nikolai has little secrets, little schemes. He's an Aries. Nikolai was able to save Bagra, who decided to pick up on teaching Alina again. It is discovered that Jinya is now accompanying Alina, so the king and queen are furious because if you recall, it was Jinya. Jinya? Is it Jinya or Genia? I think it's Jinya. I'm going to say Jinya from now on. It was Jinya who poisoned the king on the Darkling's commands. She faces a trial for treason, but when Nikolai learns that Jinya, I said it again, Jinya. So Nikolai learns that Jinya was forced by the king to sleep with him, right? So Nikolai makes the king abdicate from the throne and essentially banishes him to like one of their little colony islands. They're all colonizers, which is disappointing to find out because I kind of liked Nikolai. But Sergei, one of the Greshas that were from the Little Palace and left the White Cathedral with Alina, suffers from PTSD-like symptoms. So he is transferred somewhere that sees less action because in previous skirmishes he kind of did less helpful than he could have been, So they decide to send him over there. The gang starts making plans to look for the Firebird, but first Alina is needed in West Ravaka with Nikolai for diplomacy reasons. Nikolai gives Alina his family heirloom, essentially proposing to her, along with trunks full of fancy clothes, most of which she lent to Zoya, Nadia, Tamar, and Jinya. And they have a cute little girls' night, It's nice to see Alina being just a teenage girl with other teenage girls, especially in comparison to how she was in Shadow and Bone when she had no female friends or any other friends besides Maul, really, and seemed to be very envious of other girls. Meanwhile, Maul is in the background having a training montage. I guess it's so cringy and a little funny. Later, Alina visits the Darkling again. She learns his real name is Alexander, spelled with an S after X, I think, which has got to be the most common Eastern European name. Alina also learns that he is planning on crossing the Fold to attack West Ravaka using David's abandoned plans for a glass skiff, like a boat, that is also a light source, like in the middle. Alina talks to Bagra to try to get information about the Firebird, and Bagra finally reveals that Morozova is her father, making him the Darkling's grandfather. Bagra also had a sister who seemed to have no powers, but Alina starts fearing that she actually did. It is actually her ancestor, which will explain where she gets her light powers for. Just simply a contrast of the dark and light, And it's giving me strong Star Wars vibes with this possible accidental incest. I should also start a timer for every time I make a Star Wars reference. Because I do really love Star Wars, so it's always in the back of my mind. Just when Alina and Nikolai are about to leave, the base is attacked by the Darkling. Sergei gave them up. Apparently he got caught midway through transfer. He almost instantly gave them up because he's afraid of dying. But of course, the Darkling kills him anyway. The Darkling changes Nikolai to a Volcra, and before he could capture Alina, Bagra sacrifices herself to stall her own son. Zoya, Ma, Toya, Tamar, Harsha, and Inferni Grisha, I don't think I've mentioned yet. Misha, a little boy who was assisting Bagra, David, Jinya, Nadia, Nadia's severely injured little brother, now like one arm short, and Alina all make it out on one of the flying skiffs. They fly nonstop for a long time in order to hide themselves, Alina manages to make the ship invisible by kind of like manipulating the light, preventing it from bouncing off of them or whatever. When they finally land, Alina goes off on her own and sees Volkra Nikolai, who followed them. She tries to interact with him, but Nikolai flies away, leaving Alina all alone, and she just has an emotional breakdown. Eventually, Maul finds her and brings her back to the group, and they all have a bonding moment of sorts, which was very nice to see. In the beginning, it seemed like the only person Alina cared about was Maul, but now that she's developing meaningful relationships with other people, she's become way more likable. I look around at our strange, battered little group, at Adric with his missing arm, gazing moon-eyed at Zoya, at Harsha and Tolia, watching as Maul sketched our route in dirt. I saw Jinya grin, her scars pulling taut as David gestured wildly, trying to explain his idea for a brass arm to Nadia, while Nadia ignored him, running her fingers through the dark waves of Tamar's hair. None of them were easy or soft or simple. They were like me, nursing hurts and hidden wounds, all broken in different ways. We didn't quite fit together. We had edges so jagged we cut each other sometimes. But as I curled up on my side, the warmth of the fire at my back, I felt a rush of gratitude so sweet it made my throat ache. Fear came with it. Keeping them close was a luxury I would pay for. Now I had more to lose. The group ends up splitting up, one to secure lodging and the other to find the Firebird. Alina, Maul, Zoya, Harsha, and Tolia being in the second group. But before they split up, Maul has a moment with Misha, the little boy, that I think is supposed to make girls like swoon over him. Like, look how nice and caring he is with this child. He'll make such a great dad. Come here, Maul said, waving him over. I thought Misha might not budge, but then he shuffled to us, his chin jutting out in a sulk. Do you have the pen Alina gave you? Misha nodded once. You know what that means, don't you? You're a soldier. Soldiers don't get to go where they want. They go where they're needed. You just don't want me with you. No, you need... What kind of voice did I give this kid? Let me try again. You just don't want me with you. No, we need you here to take care of the others. You know David is hopeless, and Edric is going to need help too, even if he doesn't want to admit it. You'll have to be careful with that one. Help him without letting him know you're helping. Can you manage that? Misha shrugged. We need you to take care of them the way you took care of Baghra. Some stuff about Baghra being dead now. I don't think I actually said that. Baghra's dead now. She got murked by her own son. Misha frowned. David is kind of a mess. True, Maul agreed. So, can we trust you? Misha looked away. His expression was still troubled, but he shrugged again. Thank you, Maul said. You can start by getting water boiling for breakfast. Misha nodded once, then jogged back through the gravel to get the water on. Maul glanced at me as he rose and shouldered his pack. What? Nothing. That was just really well done. Don't you want to have his babies? The second group hikes up to the mountain that is rumored to be haunted by ghosts. Lena and Maul get in an argument about what Alina, or more accurately their relationship, would be like if they win this war. And days pass and Alina finally finds the Firebird, and it nearly kills both her and Maul. But then Maul saves her and he grabs her wrist. And she realizes that the third amplifier is actually Maul. The true magic was the friends we made along the way. It's not Alina, but Maul, who's the descendant of Morozova's second daughter. Morozova turned her into the third amplifier in order to save her life, and she passed it down to her descendants. I do find it weird that Alina wasn't able to figure this out a little sooner, because there's no way that Maul has not touched her wrist before, but and I'm not even including their entire childhood that they spent together. I'm talking about the time that has passed between reuniting near the end of the first book and now, because it is implied that they've been somewhat intimate, right? And also, because the Firebird either is a phoenix or similar to one, it took me an embarrassingly amount of long time to figure that one out. It would make sense for the second daughter to like regenerate like the Doctor or Ada from Fantasy High. Not only would that be a way more interesting twist, but it would be really funny because that would mean the Darkling's like romantic rival is his aunt. They reunite the first group when they learn that in their absence, the Darkling attacked Westravaka and Kita Mizin, the orphanage where Alina and Maul grew up, and also where they sent the students after the Darkling attacked the palace. Using their connection, Alina goes to the Darkling and demands answers. He shows her how he killed off all the teachers, and including Anya Kiva, the woman who raised Alina and Maul, and some sort of revenge for the death of his own mother. And I'm like, girly, you did that to yourself. But go off, I guess. The Darkling also stole the kids as hostages. He gave her 5 days to surrender or he'll expand the fold and kill the kids, I think. The gang comes up with a plan to attack the Darkling, surprising his army and getting past the Volcra by having Alina make them invisible using her new cool light trick. But Maul makes Alina promise him that as soon as things go bad, she'll kill him to get the third amplifier. Some soldiers of Soul, the cult for Saint Alina, shows up to help in the attack, but there's no sign of the Apparite because he's a coward-ass bitch. The night before the attack, Maul and Alina have sex, and that's really all I have to say about that. I did kind of assume they've already done the deed, but I guess not. Bright and early, Alina's army prepares to attack. At first, it goes smoothly, but pretty quickly, things turn bad, and a messy fight breaks out. Even Volcra Nikolai join in. The Darkling corners Alina, and he says something that has him going, sus. Where's the boy? I have my summoner. I want my tracker too. And I'm like, girly, bestie, if Maul is just a boy to the Darkling, then Alina must be a girl that he did try to sleep with. So, you know what that means. FBI, open up! When it seems all is lost, Alina stabs Maul, gaining the third amplifier. Alina is overflown with power. She's like, oh, light bursting everywhere, and then it's gone. Instead, it's the non-Grisha that are bathed in like a magical light. The Darkling is shocked at this new power and Alina's lack of. He claims that Alina is nothing now. As the fold is broken up by the new light, Alina stabs the Darkling in the heart, and that instantly kills him. He did ask her like, oh, call me by my name one more time. But other than that, the death felt a tad bit anticlimactic. I was expecting a bit more than just stab to the heart. But somehow Tamar and Tolia resurrect Maul, which makes Alina's choice mean nothing, at least to me. Like she only had to deal with Maul's death for like 15 minutes. It seemed odd for a series that has been getting progressively darker and darker to settle for something this safe. Due to the Darkling's death, Nikolai is reverted to his human form and all of his monsters are destroyed. Publicly, Alina and Maul died in the final battle. At least that's what they told everyone. And they even magic one of the dead soul girls to look like Alina and burn her body along with the Darklings. Nikolai becomes king, and Zoya, Jinya, and David lead the second army. With Misha in their custody, Alina and Maul open an orphanage together. And that is the end of Ruin and Rising and the end of Alina's story. I wanted Alina to end up with no one, at least romantically speaking, or if she had to, I would have preferred Nikolai. I found Maul annoying at best and controlling and obsessive at worst. I would have wanted Alina to realize that yes, she cares for Maul, but she deserves a little more than someone who has been sort of hot and cold with her, like, kind of the whole time. I did kind of like the fact that they created an orphanage together. It did feel very full circle. And I also ended up really warming up to this series because I felt like there was a steady buildup of tension, unlike in Shades of Magic trilogy that felt kind of broken up by the second book. And Alina became a generally likable character by the end. And I was like, that's the most surprising thing. I think I like Alina now. Or at least I can empathize with her a bit more. If I read this when I was like 15 or 16, I would have been obsessed. I would have lost my little teenage mind. And I would have shaped my entire personality around the Greshaverse. There are more books in the Greshaverse, like Six of Crows, which I've heard good things about, I guess, mostly good. But I don't think I'll be reading them. I don't know. I'm not that interested. I do have one more video in for this series that I'm very excited to film. Well, let me know if you've read Ruin and Rising and what's your opinion on it in the comments below, or talk to me on Twitter or Instagram at Lee Owens. Hope to see you next time when I do a read-along video. This time I'll be reading the first part of Movement in the Great Flood by Tove Jansson to celebrate spring. So until then, bye!